Hello, everybody. Welcome to a talk on sympathetic joy. So, if you could just give me a thumbs up, let me know you can hear me. That would be great. I'm actually using a new mic today, so I think everything's working fine, but I want to make sure. And I see a few people have commented already because I've asked. I'm curious for the listeners today whether you've heard the term before, sympathetic joy, whether you are familiar with the concept, whether you actually practice it. So, as you sign on today, please let me know. And I'm going to be discussing this topic today from a very practical, tangible point of view. As I usually do, I like to make sure that people have a felt experience of the concepts we discuss. So that's really one thing that I focus on. And thanks, Jess. You can hear it great. Terrific, terrific. So glad. So I really, almost always, or a lot of my talks, I want to make sure that you walk away with an experience because experiences stay with us way more than thoughts or knowledge, right? Learning something new. So, sympathetic joy is a concept from Buddhism. And for those of you who know me, you know that I am Buddhist and psychotherapist and a life coach, and I integrate Buddhism with my other work, but not in a religious matter. So you do not have to worry about this conflicting with existing religious beliefs. I really talk about Buddhism as a philosophy of the mind and as really wisdom that we can bring into our daily lives to enrich our lives, and it integrates with many other beliefs. So I just want to say that because people aren't always familiar with that aspect of my work. All right. So, sympathetic joy is a capacity that we all have. It's a capacity that is innate to human beings. And what it basically is it's rejoicing in somebody else's joy, rejoicing in somebody else's good fortune, success, happiness. So many of my clients and YouTube followers have a very highly developed sense of empathy, right? I think a lot of the work that I do speaks to people who maybe even developed almost too much empathy, right? Yet we often apply that empathy to connect to and feel other people's pain or difficulties, which is wonderful. That is compassion. So it's a wonderful trait, right? We can also use that sense of empathy to really feel joy and feel the joy that somebody else is experiencing. So let me know if this is making some sense to you. Genki, yes, thank you. Sheila, excited to hear about this, especially after the isolation of the pandemic times. Yes, absolutely. We can focus so much on the negative. This is an opportunity to focus on the positive, not just the positive in our own life, but the positive in others' lives. So as I'm describing this concept, let me know when you experience this. When do you feel joy watching somebody else feel joy? And I'm going to share a couple of times when I feel this very clearly. And some of you who know me know that I paddleboard or kayak in the Sound. So I prefer water activities that are pretty quiet and mellow, not motorized. So sometimes when there's a lot of motorboats around or whatever, it can be a little bit disruptive. But just the other day, there was a motorboat and it was dragging a big tire, and the kids were sitting on the tire and they were bouncing on the waves as the motorboat dragged them, screaming with joy. And there was no way for me to witness that without feeling their joy. So it ended up being a joyful moment for me, whereas I could have focused on noise, interruption, etc. But no, they were having so much fun, right? Another example is this weekend, I got to visit my granddaughter. We went for a hike in a beautiful place called Great Meadows in Massachusetts. And really, it was sort of beautiful, but the path we were walking on was muddy, not the most beautiful, but obviously she's very close to the ground. She's having enormous joy running. She's 14 months, so this is a new activity for her to be able to walk on her own and run. And she crouches down, picks up a muddy leaf, and starts laughing at an ant that was on the leaf. And there was no way to watch her without feeling that joy myself. So those are two examples of sympathetic joy that I think most people can relate to. So as you're listening, please do share if you have some examples where you realize in the last week or two, you've actually experienced naturally, innately, spontaneously, you've experienced sympathetic joy. Teresa shares, yes, I was recently happy for my neighbors as we celebrated one of their dreams and goals come true. Yes, awesome. That is so wonderful. So, anybody else has something to share, let me know it. Sometimes it takes a few minutes for it to come across. So, sympathetic joy could also be called vicarious joy. The Sanskrit Pali term is mudita, and that's pronounced in a lot of different ways, but mudita. And this is actually a capacity that you can cultivate. So, yes, it arises spontaneously, but we can also focus on cultivating that. So, I'm going to be talking for a few minutes and then I'm going to guide you through a contemplation meditation that is aimed at cultivating this feeling of sympathetic joy. And one thing I want to say about sympathetic joy is that if we could actually feel joy for other people's joys, think how much that expands our own feeling of joy, but not like in a me way, but basically we can operate in a much happier way if we can also be happy when others are happy. So there is a limitless quality to this, and I will talk about that a little bit more. That's a little bit more of the more esoteric Buddhist concept, but it will make sense, I think, to everybody. And as I said, I wanted to start with the real tangible. Oh, Debbie's sharing, when pups are playing, having fun. It is very hard to watch puppies and not smile and laugh yourself, right? We also, this weekend with my granddaughter, we went to a little farm and we saw some goats, and there were a ton of goats. And there were baby goats and they were butting each other on the head. Yeah, you can't watch that and not feel the feelings that those goats are having, right? Where they are just happy to be in their bodies, playing, enjoying life for the moment, right? In the moment. And Jess shares, a good friend got her dream job, and even though she's moving, I'm thrilled for her. So that's your big heartedness, Jess, right? Because yes, it has a sad impact on you, but your heart is big enough, you love her enough that you can truly be thrilled for her, right? So that's wonderful. Sheila is sharing, Friday night, I was at a calm outdoor music night. There were children playing. We shared cartwheels. I was excited to see the joy of play, and you didn't know the children. That's awesome. Yeah. So often, like, I think a lot of the examples we're using, well, some of the examples we're using are like a physical play, right? And physical enjoyment. And then other ones are about somebody achieving something or having a success. And sympathetic joy can be used for both. So, mudita, or sympathetic joy, can be seen as an inner wellspring of joy. It's really can be seen as our own innate capacity for joy and the connection among us. And it can get us out of the me loop. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of the me loop, but the me loop causes us so much pain. And when you begin to do mindfulness meditation, when you begin to sit in meditation, you will at some point realize my thoughts are all about me. I did this. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, maybe I can do this, or maybe this will happen for me, or me, 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 me. And we are trapped by this me loop. Now, this does not tie to being selfish. People sometimes feel like when I bring up the me loop that I'm saying that they're selfish, but it's just that so many of our thoughts could even be about other people, but it could be about, did I hurt that person's feelings? Did I say something I shouldn't have said to that person? Should I go help this person do something, right? So they can be generous thoughts about other people, but it's still this me loop, which is a very, very painful place to be. So in general, the four immeasurables in Buddhism, which I'll mention in a moment, get us out of that me loop, get us sort of out and connected to other humans in a felt, a visceral way. Hoping this makes sense to you. The four immeasurables also, and sympathetic joy being one of those, help us understand that other people are complex, complicated human beings. They're not just like players in our play, right? Like the person does not just exist to play a role in my story. And again, that makes it sound like I'm saying we're selfish, but there can be this very narrow-minded, continual thought of, and not even so much what's in it for me, but how does this impact me? Oh, that person walks in the room and they really look beautiful. I don't feel so good about myself, right? Or, wow, that person just got a new job. Oh, I wish I got that new job. So we can really get stuck in seeing other people as players in our tragedy, sometimes comedy, but usually tragedy, rather than human beings in their own right. So in general, the four immeasurables are ways to really incorporate the complexity of other humans. And by doing so, we are also incorporating the complexity of ourselves. And as we develop more compassion for others, we are also developing more compassion for ourselves. Kelly is sharing, it's huge with anxiety. Eyes are turned inward. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And even when we're anxious about others, right? It's part of that painful me loop. So I'm going to briefly mention the four immeasurables, which are metta, loving kindness. And I do have a video on that. You can find that just by putting METTA or loving kindness in the search bar on my channel page. But I have a meditation on metta, loving kindness. Compassion is the second or is one of the four. Sympathetic joy is usually mentioned as the third, and equanimity. So those are the four immeasurables. These are considered sublime states. These are considered states to be cultivated to live a more enlightened life, you might say in Buddhism, or a happy life or a peaceful life. Basically, those states that most of us really would love to aspire towards. So again, it's loving kindness towards others, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And I have two videos on equanimity. One is about the concept of equanimity, and one is a mountain meditation, which is a meditation guided visualization developing equanimity. So those are the four states. And the term immeasurable means that we can expand these feelings to all humans. When we feel sympathetic joy, we can begin to feel this for everyone who's feeling joy, not just our favorite people or favorite animals or favorite baby. We can really begin to expand our capacity and bring it out to everybody. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to bring us into a bit of a meditation. And then I'll take questions and answers after we do a short guided meditation. But just take a deep breath. It's always a good way to start. I'm sitting on my meditation cushion, but you could be sitting in your chair, couch, wherever you are. Be aware of your seat. So if you're sitting in a chair, be aware of your feet on the floor. Be aware of the feeling of the chair supporting you. If you're on the floor like I am, be aware of your legs crossed on the ground, the stability. Take a deep breath, really into the bottom of your lungs. Your stomach goes out, and a nice slow exhale. So now I'd like to ask you to just bring to mind a moment where you naturally felt sympathetic joy, if possible. And if one doesn't come to mind, you can bring to mind a cheerful friend, someone you know who is always happy and it makes you feel happy just to be with them because they're so happy. So take a moment, bring a moment to mind, or a person or an animal. And really picture this. Really picture the person, animal, or moment. Bring in some sensory information. Breathe in the feeling that you have, enjoying their joy. Notice where you feel it in your body. Notice if there's a location in your body where you feel this sympathetic joy, vicarious joy. Notice if the feeling is warm or cold, or where it lies, or any qualities that you feel this. And you can even give this feeling a color if that makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, it's okay. You can still just notice what you feel as you bring this natural moment of sympathetic joy to mind. And once you have this feeling, I'd like you to take this feeling and bring up somebody neutral in your life. It could be the person who checks you out at the grocery store. It could be the person who changes your oil at the gas station. Just bring to mind a neutral person. You maybe have never really thought too much about what their life is like. And once you've chosen someone, imagine that person feeling joy. Imagine that person getting great news or playing a game they love. And see if you can generate the feeling of sympathetic joy as you think about this neutral person. And if at any point you lose the feeling of the sympathetic joy, you can go back to our first example, your cheerful friend, the baby, the puppies, whatever the natural one. So you can go back and regenerate that feeling if you lose it. But just take a moment and really see how strongly you can feel it, applying it to the neutral person. And then I want you to broaden this out to the many, many, many neutral people Maybe imagine a school in your neighborhood. Could even be a school you've never been inside. But bring to mind the many, many teachers, the principal, the janitor, the coaches, the children, the aides. Bring to mind all the many, many people who work at this school. And see if you can generate that feeling of sympathetic joy, imagining each one of them feeling some private joy, not even a collective for the school, but just a private joy. Each one of them feeling joy. And see if you can feel that. And I'm going to broaden this out one more step and then give you guidance if you want to practice this on your own. Let's take everybody in your town, every person who lives in your town or city, and you can imagine the multitude of beings, the complexity of their lives, and imagine each one of them feeling a moment of joy. And now I'd like to ask you to go back to the original person or moment or animal that you thought of, the one that easily came to you, easily brought up this feeling of mudita, sympathetic joy, rejoicing in somebody else's joy. Bring up that original example. And now I'd like you to apply this feeling towards yourself. Enjoy that you can feel joy. And enjoy that you can feel joy in others. So take a deep breath. Just notice if anything has shifted for you physically, emotionally, cognitively. Just notice whatever's changed. Take another deep breath. And then I really would like to open this up to questions, to comments. If you're willing to share what that experience was like for you, was that hard? Was that easy? Were parts of it easy, parts of it hard? Please share, ask some questions. I have a handful of other thoughts I'll share as well, but I want to give you all time to, and I'm also curious what that was like for you. And thank you, Elaine. Elaine is sharing that I'm a breath of fresh air. Thanks for combining the Buddhist practice and the Western psychology. I feel like these are two wisdom traditions. They really are. They're wisdom traditions that are so similar because they're a study of the mind, right? They're a study of how our mind works and integrates and relates to the outer world, and who am I and who are other people and how do I relate and how do I think about things. That's really at the core of both Buddhism and psychology. So I think they go together so well. Kelly's sharing, I felt more aware of the people around me. Okay, and was that positive? I'm curious. And English is fun, says thank you. And this was very helpful. Great. Let me know. Let me know again what your experience is. And I one thing I was thinking about is our media. And there are a couple of shows that I love that are really about sympathetic joy. And one of them is Queer Eye. I don't know how many of you watch Queer Eye, but I will say it is one of my favorite shows. But it is a show about 5 people with very different skills who come into the home of a person who's chosen. It's a reality TV show, and they help that person with their self-esteem, they help the person with their clothing, they redo their house, and the entire show is about sympathetic joy because you watch it and you are so happy for these people who are receiving this. It's just, to me, it's like really a joyous show, and it's a show about the goodness of human beings. That's really what it's about. So I love that show. And then I was thinking there are other, like there are some really feel good talent shows, right? Where you just completely rejoice in the person winning the talent show. And these are heart expanding activities, right? They're open hearted. So Teresa sharing, very important. I feel like a better person when I'm being happy for others and myself. It's a direct contradiction to how I feel after watching the news. Right. So, yeah, so I would differentiate some of these TV shows that really go to the core of sympathetic joy. And if you guys know any others that you feel get to this concept of sympathetic joy, rejoicing in the success and good fortune of others, let me know, because those are my favorite shows. News, watching it, not my favorite. I can read some headlines. I almost can't even watch news, to be perfectly honest. And you're welcome, Genki Sheila. So this is a practice that you can do after you meditate. You can meditate for, say, 10 minutes and then do a sympathetic joy contemplation. You can also bring in the meta loving kindness video that I have. I do the chant. I do a full chant that really incorporates all 4 of the immeasurables. So you could use that. And yes, oh, Kelly, I want to come back to this point for Teresa and Kelly making Lucy sharing she doesn't watch news. Yeah. The visuals are too hard for me, right? So when we're empathetic, just think about it. When we are empathetic and we watch a movie or news, we are actually experiencing what the people we're watching are experiencing. We're putting ourselves through that. And media is such a powerful means of stimulating all our mirror neurons and all our empathy. So it's important to be careful with it. It definitely is important to be careful. So this practice is considered an antidote to jealousy, an antidote to envy, to feeling sorry for oneself, to comparisonitis. All of these are very painful states, right? When we feel jealous of somebody else, it doesn't feel good. It just doesn't feel good to us. It's not about the other person, right? So, and if we actually take pleasure in somebody else's difficulties or struggles, right? So if somebody else is having a really hard time and we get a feeling of like, oh, I'm glad, ooh, it just doesn't feel good. So these practices help us feel better all around, which is another reason that they are connected to joy. So I'm agreeing with your guys' comments. And then there's also the limitless, and this is also like kind of incorporating the Buddhist concept of limitlessness. So when I did that guided meditation with you, I brought it out to your whole town or city. You can actually go out to the whole world. And even right now, if we just take a moment and we think about around the world, how many kids are having fun? Around the world, how many people are proposing to somebody and getting a yes, or getting the news that they just got a job they really want, or celebrating a wedding, right? Around the world, this stuff is happening. So we can feel that, right? We can tap into it and feel it. And Helen is asking again the four immeasurables and how to find the videos. So one video is called Developing Equanimity. Another is called Equanimity Mountain Meditation. And another is called Meta Loving Kindness. And my meta loving kindness video incorporates compassion. Actually, so does this one, the Sympathetic Joy. This incorporates some compassion. I don't have a separate one on that, I don't think. But I can also put them in the notes to this video when we finish up here. So thank you so much for being so involved and interactive. And I hope this was helpful for you. And I look forward to hearing more of your comments. And if you're watching on the replay and you put a comment down, I do look at almost all the comments, so I should get it and be able to respond. And if you have any other questions, I'll wait a minute or two. Claire is sharing, happy for everyone's joy and winnings and victories and good, healthy bodies. Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.